inflation-adjusted hype, 2 weeks in one, and the internet is for porn. Welcome to the Unlimited Supply Podcast, your daily music business TLDR in your ear, powered by 30 years of been there, done that, and brought to you by No Disc, helping music, technology, and finance companies navigate the music industry, and partnered with Digital Music News. It's March 24th, 2025. I'm Lars Murray in NYC. It's Monday, where we talk about what happened over the weekend and what's coming up this week. Over the weekend, Ted Gioia posted a graph on his LinkedIn feed with the provocative headline that the music industry has not grown adjusted for inflation since 1972, with the added caveat, don't believe the hype. The hype in question being presumably that the music industry is bigger and better than ever. Gioia adds the extra twist of the knife that the industry has essentially bowed before its tech overlords. Don't believe the hype is generally pretty solid advice, unless we're talking about the pastrami sandwich at Cat's Deli, in which case do believe the hype. Do believe that hype. But I digress. There is more than a smidgen of hype in claiming the industry hasn't grown since 1972. In fact, while it may be about the same level that it was in 1972, that hype ignores some key events along the 50-year-plus timeline. That would be the CD boom, wherein enormous numbers of people repurchased their entire collections, and the Napster bust, which popped that balloon and sent the industry into a tailspin. It also omits the fact that the streaming era has represented sustained period of growth coming out of that post-CD abyss to get back up to that 1972 level. And while Gioia is absolutely correct that the industry is largely controlled by tech overlords who don't care a whit for art and culture if it interferes with their bottom lines, the idea that the industry has weakly bowed to these tech overlords is at best a bit reductive. The two times the industry has fought the hardest against new technologies, arguably the cassette wars of the 70s and 80s and the Napster war at the turn of the 21st century, not only did the industry largely lose those battles, they arguably wasted valuable time and left money on the table by not adjusting to a new reality imposed not by tech overlords, but by consumers. In some cases, artists, from jam bands through mixtapes through YouTube and TikTok, have found ways to move faster and, in fact, get rich without much help from the industry at large. One thing about having worked in the music industry in the digital space since the 90s, I still call it new media, axe grinder incoming, is that you see a lot of patterns repeating themselves. A new technology emerges, pirates get there first along with the porn folks, we'll come back to that later. Large swaths of the industry protest loudly as their livelihoods or personal fiefdoms are threatened. A new generation of hustlers and entrepreneurs take advantage, and ultimately the industry adjusts to the new reality. I could go on about this in exhaustive depth, but this is a TLDR podcast, and I have an hourly rate for consulting. The basic rules, since the dawn of the internet, still apply. Own your data, know your fans, and don't become too dependent on a single platform. Of course, the other pattern that repeats itself endlessly in technology is that many of those plucky first adopters, the ones who get rich first, come from one place. And where would that be? Well, let's check in with our resident media expert, Trekkie Monster from the musical Avenue Q. Due to copyright restrictions, Trekkie Monster could not appear in person, so I will impersonate him. The internet is for porn. The internet is for porn. The latest platform to experience this burst of plucky entrepreneurship is Spotify, which has been fighting off an infestation of non-family friendly porn content on its podcast charts and in other pesky places in their platform. Turns out algorithms are just as horny as the techies who create them. We'll see whether today's episode title helps or hurts us. Over at Bloomberg, Ashley Carman broke the story. It's behind the paywall if you're a young, horny finance bro. If you're not a Bloomberg subscriber, Kyle Barr has a nice breakdown of the problem and the measures Spotify is taking over at Gizmodo. Occasionally, the tech overlords don't win one. On Friday, the news broke that AI-generated works in the United States are not subject to copyright protection. To borrow another Avenue Q reference, for now. The ruling came in the District of Columbia Appeals Court against an academic computer scientist, Stephen Thaler, who had filed a copyright claim on behalf of his generative AI tool. The decision turned on a specific authorization of a human rather than a platform. I'm going to assume that a computer scientist working in an academic setting does not have the legal and political resources of big AI or even Suno or Udio, so we'll see whether this ruling sticks. But it is good news for human creators and rights holders for now. Getting back to the tech overlords that the industry may or may not have bowed to, Music Business Worldwide and David Israelite of the National Music Publishers Association continue to stay on top of the great Spotify cash out. Over at MBW, Mandy Dalugdug reported Friday that Spotify CEO Daniel Ek had cashed out another $29 million in stock last week, and Israelite took the opportunity to remind everybody that he cashed out more from Spotify in calendar 2024 than all of the songwriters combined. Okay, let's look at the week ahead. It's 2 weeks in one. Miami Music Week starts tomorrow, the Winter Music Conference starts Wednesday, and the Ultra Music Festival starts on Friday. A good time to reiterate the 4 rules of EDM: own your data, know your fans, don't become too reliant on a single platform, and keep hydrating always. It's also Women in Music Week, BillBoard's Women in Music event, which has grown significantly in recent years from an industry luncheon to a full public event, is at the YouTube Theater on Saturday in LA. It will also be streaming live. Support for the Unlimited Supply podcast is provided by RoyFi. If you need an advance to take your career to the next level, you plucky entrepreneur you, RoyFi has the best rates in the industry, the fairest terms, and no hidden agendas. RoyFi is mission-driven to give artists the independence they need. See if you're eligible for an advance at RoyFi. That's RoyFi.com. And by Hangout.fm. Hangout by Turntable Labs, Inc. is the new social listening platform where users connect, discover new music, and play well over 100 million songs for their friends and family and complete strangers, and where artists are discovering new ways to connect with their fans. To get unlimited supply every single day, follow us wherever you get your podcasts or ask Alexa or Siri to play the Unlimited Supply podcast. If you like what you hear, please hit that follow button wherever you get your pods. I live for your praise and encouragement, but don't just tell me. Seriously, it only matters if you drop us a rating and or a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify, and please tell a friend or 3. Links are in the show notes, but you can also visit unlimitedsupplypod.com to sign up for our newsletter, to tell us what you think about the show, to suggest feature ideas, to feed us info, to feed us lunch, to call us out on our dubious assertions, and to tell us what we're missing out on. I'm Lars Murray, and remember, in this business, no conflict means no interest.